They called it a dream house. Colonial in style, picturesque in presentation, with its white wood siding, large windows, and peaceful waterfront view along Ocean Avenue in Amityville, Long Island. But behind its charm, behind its quiet suburban facade, lay secrets that refused to sleep, darkness that watched, waited, and whispered through the walls. The house didn't merely shelter those who lived in it, it devoured them. The legend began on a cold November night in 1974. The DeFeo family, 6 members, were found brutally murdered in their beds. Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest son, confessed to the killings, claiming voices in the house made him do it. He said the voices came from the walls, the shadows, the mirrors. Everyone chalked it up to insanity, but those who stepped into the house afterward whispered that the madness hadn't died with the DeFeos. A year later, the Lutz family moved in. George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, were enchanted by the house's beauty and the bargain price. They moved in with hope, dreams, and faith. But within 28 days, they fled, never to return. What happened in those 28 days became the stuff of legend, of warning, of nightmare. The first night was uneventful, but it was only the silence before the storm. By the 3rd night, George began waking up every day at 3:15 a.m., the exact time the DeFeo murders occurred. He'd jolt awake with the feeling of being watched. He'd walk the halls, checking on the children, sensing something unseen breathing just behind him. The cold followed him, even in heated rooms. Kathy, meanwhile, felt uneasy but brushed it off as stress. That was until she began to dream the murders, vivid, brutal, accurate visions she couldn't explain. The children, especially the youngest daughter, Missy, began speaking of imaginary friends. Missy described her new friend as a red-eyed pig named Jody, who could appear and disappear at will, and who promised to protect her from the man in the walls. The atmosphere grew dense, doors opened and slammed by themselves, crucifixes turned upside down. The priest they called to bless the house claimed he heard a voice yell, "Get out!" He became ill shortly after leaving and refused to return. Flies gathered on windows in rooms with no reason for infestation. Shadows moved independently of light, and the cold grew deeper, like something ancient and angry was seeping through the foundation. George became obsessed with the fireplace. No matter how high the thermostat, he felt cold, and he kept burning wood endlessly, staring into the flames as if looking for answers, or perhaps losing himself to something that burned deeper than fire. Kathy found welts on her skin after nightmares. She claimed to feel invisible hands touching her at night. Once she looked into a mirror and didn't recognize the reflection. Missy's behavior changed. She would sing lullabies she never knew. She claimed Jody told her secrets about the house, about the people who died, about things buried beneath the floorboards. One day, Kathy found Missy speaking in a guttural tone that wasn't her own. They found cloven hoof prints in the snow outside, even though no animal had entered. One night, George saw red eyes glowing from the 2nd floor window. When he rushed outside, there was nothing there, but Missy said Jody had been watching him. The staircase became a terror. George often heard footsteps climbing when no one was there. One night, the steps creaked slowly upward, pausing outside their bedroom door. When he opened it, nothing was visible, but the stench of sulfur filled the hall, and the door downstairs slammed shut violently. They tried to pray, but prayer only seemed to agitate whatever resided there. The more they resisted, the more intense the phenomena became. The walls began to bleed. A thick green-black slime oozed from cracks. One night, Kathy was levitated from her bed, and George was paralyzed, unable to reach her. The children screamed from their room, their beds shaking violently, their screams echoing through the house like a chorus of the damned. The final night was the worst. The temperature dropped below freezing indoors. The house groaned and shifted like a beast preparing to rise. Missy screamed that Jody said the man in the walls was coming. George saw shadows crawling along the ceiling, stretching long arms toward them. The walls pulsated. The floorboards buckled. The house itself felt alive. They ran. They left everything, clothes, food, even personal items, and never returned. Investigators found no logical explanation for what happened. Some said it was mass hysteria. Others called it a hoax. But those who've lived near the house say they still hear cries in the night. Lights flicker. And some claim to see a shadow moving past the windows when the house is empty. Years passed. The story became legend. Books, films, documentaries tried to make sense of it. But no storyteller could match the fear of those who lived it. George and Kathy never changed their story. Even on their deathbeds, they held firm to what they experienced. The house was sold, renovated, renumbered, changed to protect it from attention. But those who dared live there reported strange occurrences. Whispers, cold spots, shadows at the edge of vision. One couple claimed their dog refused to enter the basement. Another reported dreams of murders they had no knowledge of. Children spoke of voices telling them secrets. Mirrors cracked for no reason. Doors refused to stay closed. There's a theory that the land itself is cursed. That centuries ago, native tribes refused to live there, calling it sick ground. Others say a cult once practiced dark rituals in the area long before houses were built. That blood soaks the soil. That death resides beneath. No matter the reason, one truth remains. Those who step into the house feel something watching. It doesn't show itself immediately. It waits. It studies. It feeds on fear, slowly unraveling sanity. And when the time is right, it reveals itself, not as a ghost, but as a presence, a force, a weight that crushes the soul. They say some houses remember, but the Amityville house doesn't just remember. It repeats, over and over. It lures in the hopeful, the innocent, the unknowing. And once inside, the house decides who leaves and who stays forever. What happened in that house can't be fully explained. But those who've walked its halls, heard its whispers, and survived its darkness agree on one thing. The Amityville house isn't haunted. It is the haunting.